After 2 years, we're getting an update to one of the most popular super shoes in recent years, the Saucony Endorphin Elite. Now, a lot has changed between these two shoes, and in this video, we're going to break down the key differences and updates in the Saucony Endorphin Elite 2. So hopefully you can make the decision for yourself whether you should buy the discounted previous model or the current new one. What's up, everybody? I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod. You're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Like I said, today we're breaking down the differences or the update to the new Saucony Endorphin Elite. Now, if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to various parts of the review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate it if you come back and watch the full thing, as I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you've been watching for a while, but you haven't yet hit that subscribe button or turned on notifications, please do so now. That way you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As of 2025, I have been doing daily videos. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this comparison, let's just talk about some quick disclaimers and disclosures, which are that I actually purchased these shoes with my own money. I was given a discount for the Endorphin Elite through my local running store or the local Saucony rep, but I did pay my own money aside from that, and I am getting somewhat reimbursed for the Endorphin Elite 2 through my association with WeViews, where I am a multi-tester reviewer, but for the remainder of the balance, I did pay out of pocket. As with any of my reviews or videos, no one's paying me to include these shoes in this video. No one is asking me to make any specific content. No one gives me a script, talking points, anything like that. No one watches the video beforehand. All thoughts are entirely my own. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of these two shoes. Now, the intended use of these two shoes is really going to be marathon racing. These are super shoes specifically designed to go fast and cover 26.2. There has been a little bit of a split in the super shoe market as of late with brands where you'll kind of see their not necessarily everyman super shoe, but you kind of have your slightly more stripped down super shoe, though still premium, still expensive generally, and then you have kind of their premier super shoe option, right? So the example of this for Saucony would be the Endorphin Pro is kind of your typical super shoe, I guess, and those ones tend to be a little bit more sleek, can kind of race down. Meanwhile, the premier option, like the Endorphin Elite, is really specialized for the marathon. You also see this with Nike, with the Alphafly versus the Vaporfly, and with Adidas with the Adios Pro versus the Adios Pro Evo line. Now, from a price perspective, both of these shoes launched at $275, so that price is staying consistent across 2 years, which is kind of nice to see, as a lot of these more premier options, I think we're going to start seeing creep up closer to or even surpass that $300 mark. I think it is a little nice to be able to have a full-blown super shoe for closer to the $200 mark, and having this distinction between like specialized marathon versus maybe a little bit more versatile, can race down with the Pro line, gives a little bit of that price gap for those who are a little bit more budget conscious. But ultimately, inflation has taken hold of the running shoe market, and there's not much we can really do there. Now, from a specs perspective, the one came in at 7.3 ounces and 206 grams, and the two is going to come in at 7.1 and 201 grams. So there is a little bit of weight savings, and we'll talk about where I think that's coming from overall as we go through the shoe. Moving to the stack, you had 39 in the heel and 31 in the forefoot for an 8mm heel to toe drop in the one, and in the two it's up to 40 in the heel, 32 in the forefoot, and an 8mm heel to toe drop. So largely the same. I got both of those measurements from Running Warehouse, and so they measure independently with the same size. So it sounds like the two is going to be slightly more cushioned, or at least have slightly more stack. Now, from a fit perspective, the one had a roomy toe box, a somewhat wide heel, and kind of a standard midfoot, and I feel like the shoe fit true to size lengthwise. The two is going to fit fairly similar, at least in just trying it on foot. Full disclosure, I have not yet run in the shoe. This is really more of a specs and technology breakdown comparison. So with the two, you're going to have a standard toe box. I did feel like it fit almost on the slightly narrower side though, just with kind of how it curves in towards the pinky toe, so something to be aware of. I felt like it fit a tiny bit short, so not enough for me to justify going a half size up, but I have heard that some people are going a full half size up in this shoe. And then I found that the heel was fairly wide or accommodating, and that midfoot is also somewhat accommodating. So I do think that both of these shoes are somewhat wide foot friendly for the most part, but again, keep an eye on that toe box. Maybe not an issue if you half size up though. Moving to the uppers, the one had a very unique upper. It is what is called a knit mesh. It's super breathable, super lightweight. You can see there's actually cutouts where you can see through the shoe to your sock. I don't know if you can see my face through there, but was a super breathable, kind of unique upper at the time. I don't think we had seen anything quite like this, and I don't think that we've really seen anything quite like this since, to be honest. It was very unique overall. You can see it had kind of that soft heel counter, but then you had these reinforced plasticky overlays, as well as kind of that midfoot lockdown piece, which allowed you to get a really good lockdown in that midfoot overall. The tongue was really unique. It kind of was almost this felt type material, and it was fully gusseted, or it is fully gusseted, I should say. But the tongue did give me some issues. It kind of, you know, I had to use the runner's nut on this shoe to really get the lockdown that I was looking for. The tongue felt kind of short, and it did bunch up a little. It was a little bit awkward, but overall, I felt like this was a really solid upper, and again, really, really unique take on an upper. Now moving to the 2, another very unique upper overall. So this is a woven mesh, which is super, super breathable. So you have kind of this lattice or like this mesh pattern here. You can see my finger there. So it's not completely cut out like the first model, but I do think it's going to be equally as breathable. And then the tongue, you don't have to worry really about the tongue sliding down or anything. Really what we have is the Endorphin Pro 4 tongue kind of in a brand new upper. So you can see there is a lot of stretch. I do worry a little bit, not necessarily with lockdown, but with some lace pressure to really get your fit. You can also do the runner's knot, so there is an extra loop there that is going to be able to assist you with the runner's knot if that's what you want to do. Now, again, trying this on foot, I felt like I got some pretty good lockdown in the midfoot. In fact, I do think I won't be needing the runner's knot if I had to guess in comparison to the one. And then you still do have kind of this soft heel, which is super, super comfortable, and it has a little bit of padding, but it is still structured. And so again, just trying it on foot, the shoe feels really comfortable. The upper just kind of disappears, which is really, really cool. The shoe as a whole kind of has a sock-like fit, but doesn't have that elastic knit that some sock-like uppers have. So it's kind of the best of both worlds in how they've executed this. Really, really cool concept overall. Now moving to the midsole, this is where the biggest changes happen with the shoe. So in the midsole of the original Elite, Saucony released a new foam called Power Run HG, which was still P-Bax based, but it was a new kind of compression or new tuning, which made it very, very responsive. In fact, they claim that you get like a 95% energy response, whatever that really means, right? I don't know exactly how they quantify that with their machines, but it was supposed to be really, really responsive, really propulsive, and it still maintained kind of a softer overall feel, but I found that it was pretty supportive for the most part. Along with that, you did have a forked carbon fiber plate in the shoe, and I found that the Endorphin Elite was really, really snappy, and you can see that it was really, really kind of rigid, right? Which is normal for a super shoe, but this kind of took it to the next level to me, where really, like, this wasn't a shoe. Some super shoes, like, you can kind of cruise in, and this wasn't one of them. This was one of those shoes that, like, really snapped, really liked to go fast. It's not a shoe that I would take on, like, just an easy long run. Like, you really wanted to have some fast paces in the shoe, otherwise it wasn't going to be the most comfortable on foot. I felt like because the foam was soft yet supportive and you had a decently wide base, the shoe was also fairly stable. So usually when you get a shoe this fast, it's not going to be a really stable option, but I felt like this really did work for a large number of different foot strikes and runners because of the stability that was in the shoe as a whole. Now, once again, with the introduction of the Elite, we get a brand new foam from Saucony, and they're completely changing the formula. So this one is a supercritical TPEE, which we've seen a couple of brands shift to this. It's similar to the TPEE that's used in the Adios Pro 4 from Adidas, in the sense that it is actually super squishy. So it's one of the softest foams underfoot that I felt, but what they say is that it kind of operates like a Newtonian fluid. So if you're unfamiliar with that, think like oobleck, I think that's what it's called, but essentially it's like a fluid, or it's a material that is very, very squishy when you're kind of slowly pushing into it. But if you go and try and punch it, it's like punching a brick wall. So this foam is supposed to interact with the ground the same, where the faster or the more force you're putting into the shoe, the firmer it's going to feel overall. I can tell you, just walking around in the shoe, it's actually crazy comfortable, and you can't actually feel the carbon fiber plate, and there is another forked carbon fiber plate in this shoe. And then the other thing is they actually put a Power Run PB, which is the supercritical foam that they had in the Endorphin Pro 4, which is soft and very comfortable and very responsive. So just the insole of the shoe is that material. So you do get just a lot of really comfortable soft feedback. I think that might confuse some people into thinking that this is like a more relaxing super shoe, but from what I've seen early on, or comments that I've seen people make, is that this shoe is similar to the Endorphin Elite 1 in the sense that like it doesn't like to go slow. In fact, it's supposed to be very, very unstable at slower paces, and the faster you go and the more you kind of start to get on your toes, the more snap, more propulsion you're going to get. So this is not a shoe that I would probably recommend for a wide variety of foot strikes or those with stability needs, just based off of what I'm being told so far. Again, my opinions may change when the full review of this does launch in probably like a month and a half. Now moving to the outsoles, both of them have very thin, lightweight outsoles. On the Elite 1, it was that XT900 thin rubber compound that had solid overall traction and really didn't add a whole lot of weight there. There were some exposed areas, obviously, of the foam, most specifically kind of there in the medial heel. But for me, at least, I didn't see any excess wear there, but that is kind of a sign a little bit that if you were someone who was a heel striker, you may wear this shoe down a little bit more. But again, even most heel strikers are landing on the lateral heel and rolling through to the toe, right? Or if you're an overpronator, that's kind of what's happening, but to a larger extent. So the natural foot strike of most people will roll through, so it was logical just to have it on the outside there. I don't know if it's because of a decrease in stability, but they did add on the medial side there another strip of rubber, and this is what's called a Power Track rubber from Saucony, and it's supposed to be better on wet surfaces. So I didn't think the XT900 struggled on wet surfaces by any means, but this is supposed to be a little bit better. You have some traction there and some light texture there as well. So it feels nice. It looks like it could be good, but also we'll have to test it out obviously on the roads and see kind of maybe even after rain or in rain how this shoe holds up. But for the most part, hopefully that rubber holds its own in a race. Now, obviously, I'm not going to give my pick because I haven't had a chance to get miles in these yet, but as far as which one you should pick, I do think it becomes pretty obvious when you look at the setups which you may prefer if you're comparing these two shoes. So if you're someone with a little bit of stability need, right, if you're someone who likes a little bit firmer, but not firm foam, but firmer than this, then you're going to go with the Elite and you're going to be able to get it on a really good price because these are going to be discounted across the board. But if you're someone who likes a softer foam, likes kind of that TPEE, maybe you've used the Adios Pro 4 or other Adios models before from Adidas, and you like that squishy kind of foam that firms up as you go fast, that's where you might want to consider trying the Endorphin Elite 2. You know, I'm not a believer that certain shoes should be restricted to certain paces. That being said, in speaking with brands, a lot of the time they do have pace windows in mind when they design shoes. And in conversations with Saucony, it did sound like the Endorphin Elite 2 was kind of your 2:30 to 3 hour marathoner, like minimum standard is kind of what I was hearing. Again, that's not published. That was just in conversation at the running event in Austin. And so, you know, you just have to understand that this was designed for and with athletes like Jared Ward, who are, you know, sub 230. In fact, I'm not sure what his PB is, but it might be sub 210 even. So that's the level of runner that basically they worked with to design this shoe. Now we know, again, with super shoes and whatnot, we still can get gains and we still can get that application even at slower paces, but the faster you are, oftentimes the more effect that they have. So just something to consider when looking at these two shoes. This one seems to be a little bit more friendly for a variety of foot strikes and speeds. This one I do think seems like it's going to be best at faster speeds overall. So just some final thoughts. I'm really excited to get this one on foot, get some miles out there. I really like the TPEE, any TPEE-based running shoe that I've tried over through 2025. So I'm thinking Adios Pro 4, Wave Rebellion Pro 3. Both of those, I believe, are TPEE-based, and these shoes are super responsive, super bouncy, and just a lot of fun to run in. And I do think just, you know, seeing that Incredi-Run foam, that new foam that they're introducing in this shoe, it seems next level. So all in all, excited to get these out. Now, if you watched this far, I sure appreciate you. Please leave a comment. Let me know what comparisons you'd like to see or what shoes you're most excited to see in 2025. And if you liked what you saw today, please leave a like. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, just so you can continue to get notified every time I drop a new video. And as always, we'll finish off with a question, which is, which Saucony super shoe do you prefer? Are you more of an Endorphin Pro or an Endorphin Elite guy? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.